Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. It is Saturday, April 6th, and we are here trying to help you make better financial decisions. We're also here to expose you to some of the people that have been so meaningful to me and Mark in our career. Today, we're giving you a little taste of what lives behind the Jill on Money Live very low paywall. You know, the $35 for a full year. We recently were joined by Cal Newport. He is a professor and he is an author. His most recent book is called Slow Productivity: The Lost Art of Accomplishment Without Burnout. And I'm hopeful that this little tease gives you a taste of what lives behind the paywall and why we think the $35 is just totally worth it. What is a way to measure productivity of somebody who doesn't produce an actual good?
Well, this is the central problem of knowledge work, right? And the whole argument in the first part of my book is that knowledge work emerges as a major economic sector in the mid-20th century. When it emerges, they had this problem that we can't measure productivity in the way we're used to. Like you said, in the industrial manufacturing, this was very quantitative. Like how many widgets per labor hour are we producing? They also would have a very clearly defined production system. So you could change something in the productive system, look at that ratio. If it gets better, like this is more productive. And that's how we had this sort of productivity miracle that was like the 20th century industrial manufacturing. We get the knowledge work that doesn't work anymore, right? Because I might be working on 7 or 8 different things at the same time. They might be different than what you're working on. It's much more informal how work is assigned and workloads are managed. The systems by which we organize our efforts are internal and autonomous and obfuscated. So there's no central system that we're studying and trying to improve. In that environment, all of the classic econ definitions of productivity fell apart. I don't think we realize this. I still think in a lot of critiques of knowledge work productivity, we're still porting an industrial metaphor over. But what we actually did is we replaced this sort of quantitative Econ 101 notion of productivity with a heuristic that I call pseudo-productivity, which just said, let's use visible activity as a proxy for useful effort.
So if I look like I'm doing stuff and I'm in the office for many, many hours, that looks like I'm productive.
Yeah, it's what matters, right? So they say, we want to be more productive, work longer hours. Right. Come in earlier, stay later. This is a large part why managers at first are uncomfortable with remote work. I'm worried that I can't have eyes on. Like, what if someone is not doing a visible activity? Like, what if someone is not being busy about work during some part of the day? If pseudo productivity is all you know, this is very worrisome. And so pseudo productivity really emerged as the implicit yardstick we've been using in knowledge work.
What are the things you need to know about slow productivity? What is it, and what are the things to do, and how can you apply it in your life?
All right. So if you have this autonomy, you're a solo entrepreneur or you run a small business, I will give you one idea from each of the 3 principles, just so we get a sense of what slow productivity looks like. All right. So the first principle says do fewer things. And the real argument here is that everything that you're actively working on brings with it administrative overhead, right? So there's emails that have to be sent, there's meetings that have to happen. So if you are actively working on a lot of things at the same time, each of these things is generating its own overhead, and this all starts to add up. And this is how you get to that state of being overworked, overstressed, and overburdened, because so much of your day now is servicing the administrative demands of things you've committed to. There's very little time left to actually work, and the time that does remain is really fractured. It's really cognitively depleted. It's really hard to focus. So if you work on less things at the same time, there's less administrative overhead, which means more of your day can actually be focused on completing those things. Now, the magic here is that this means you're going to accomplish these things faster and at a higher level of quality. So if you zoom out and say, how many, contracts do we finish this year? That number is going to be higher in the scenario in which you work on fewer of them at the same time. So this isn't a sacrifice of I'm going to be worse at my job so that my job is more tolerable. This is actually more of a win-win type situation. The way I'm working is good for no one except maybe Salesforce because they own Slack, and it helps if I'm using it all the time. And it's not making me better at my job, it's making me miserable. So you want to do fewer things. So fewer active projects, right? And the way you might want to deal with this, if you want to make sure that you have good deal flow, is just have a division actively working on, queued up for me to work on, right? So you can have a nice queue. Here's 4 or 5 things that are queued up. And this can be posted somewhere. Like the clients whose work is in here can go and look at its status, and they can watch it march down the queue until it gets to active. And then once it gets to active, yeah, we can email you about it. Let's have meetings about it. Like, I want to know how it's going, right? So you can still keep a good pipeline going. You can still keep deal flow pretty fast. But you are now going to be operating in a much less stressful environment and much more effectively because there's many fewer things that you're working on at the same time.
That was just a little taste. If you want the whole shebang, you have to join Jill on Money Live. That's where you have access to quarterly live webinars like the one we just conducted with Cal Newport, as well as bonus video content. If you want to check out Cal's work, I would encourage you to go to his website, calnewport.com. You can buy his book wherever you buy books. You can subscribe to this show on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your favorite podcast. And don't forget to do something nice for someone else today. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.